All right, let's get to our featherweight main event now, where we got veteran Josh Emmett coming in at a plus 475 underdog line, going up against streaking rising contender Kevin Vallejos, who comes in at minus 650. By the way, I will say, I think it's Kevin Vallejos. I think it's Vallejos. We're going to go with Vallejos, though, because that's how I think it's supposed to be pronounced. But regardless, we'll start off on the Josh Emmett side of things. So you see his profile here. You see that his last five doesn't look the greatest. 1-4 in his last five. His last win being that nasty knockout win that he has over Bryce Mitchell. But he came up short in a 5-round Apex main event against Lerone Murphy in a fight where he did have some success. There were some rounds you could definitely give to him. And then his last one where he ended up getting submitted by Yusuf Zalal in the first round of that fight. So very, very tough stretch. He had a 5-fight winning streak from 2019 to 2022, which led him to that interim title fight against Yair Rodriguez. Unfortunately, he got triangle choked in the second round and lost that fight. His losses following that Yair one are some tough ones, right? Ilia Topuria, tough one, right? You can't blame him for that loss. Lerone Murphy, who's in a number one contender fight later on this month. And then Yusuf Zalal, who's obviously had a career resurgence ever since coming back to the promotion. He has big power in his hands. His wrestling is not all that bad. I'd say his kind of kryptonite is guys that can actually get him to the ground and implement their wrestling game. His durability is definitely up there. He's been rocked and hurt in some fights, but seeing the shots that he ate against Topuria and stayed in that fight, absolutely crazy. Even Murphy was able to land some big shots on him, but he stayed in that fight and made it competitive. I know he's 41 years old, but he seems like one of those guys that's in a bit of an anomaly because of his athleticism and because of his experience. So that's going to make it tough for a lot of guys to have success against him to get to that next level. Again, Yair, submission, Topuria, banged on him. Mitchell couldn't even get to it before he ended up getting knocked out. Murphy was, supposedly supposed to just cruise in that fight, but it was a lot closer than a lot of people thought it would be. And then Zalal was able to exploit the submission defense of Emmett and end up submitting him there. So again, it doesn't look the greatest for him, but he's still a guy that can be very competitive. Now, he's going up against Kevin Vallejos, who's obviously won all of his fights ever since losing that 2023 Contender Series matchup to Gene Silva. He ended up going 15 minutes with him, so that's a consolation prize in and of itself. But he was able to get back on the train, won 2 fights on the regional scene, got another shot on the Contender Series, provided a nasty knockout victory over Cam Teague, and now has won 2 of his 3 UFC wins by knockout. The other one, he went to a fun striking decision against Danny Silva. The Giga Chikadze fight, which was his last one, I believe, in December, that was the co-main event. He was getting a bit touched up by Chikadze in that first round, but luckily in the second round, he was able to unleash a nasty spinning back fist, I believe it was, or a spinning back elbow, and it hurt Chikadze and put him away that way. Very nasty knockout win and a big win for Vallejos, but do not overlook how that fight was going, right? He is a guy that is heavily reliant on landing power combinations to try to hurt his opponents. He'll try to mix in the grappling when he can to try to just be a little bit more well-rounded, but don't get me wrong, his bread and butter is his striking, landing that power, relying on that knockout power to try to get opponents out of there. But if they don't get out of there, things might get a little shaky depending on who he's going up against. He was able to land the more devastating shots against a guy like Danny Silva, who's a little bit more of a technical savant with his boxing style, right? He's more combination, stinging power, whereas whenever Vallejos was landing against Silva, it was obvious Vallejos was landing with more bad intentions and the ability to potentially knock Silva out. So that's why he won that fight. But you saw Chikadze landing his shots, landing good body kicks as well, and that's where Vallejos was getting a little bit frustrated. Luckily, he got that spinning back. Again, I can't remember if it was an elbow or a fist, but he hurt Chikadze and put him out like that. Now, here against Emmett, fun fight. A lot of people, if the odds are telling you anything, a lot of people think that Vallejos is just going to go out there, land that big shot on Emmett, and just starch him. I don't think so. I think Emmett could make this competitive. If Emmett's durability has held up as it has against Topuria and Lerone Murphy, I'd kind of be surprised if Vallejos lands that big shot to put Emmett away. Unless he lands something crazy like he did against Chikadze, sure, he could potentially do that. But Emmett's durability is normally good enough. And then if they end up throwing down, if they have some good competitive pocket exchanges, Emmett could make this more of a fight than Vallejos might be ready for. This is Vallejos' first 5-round UFC matchup. Obviously very young still, 24 years old. Kind of the issue I had with him coming into the UFC was that he might need a little bit more experience against tougher competition. He was running through most of the guys that he fought on the Argentinian scene, but as he's going to be fighting these guys in the UFC, more experienced guys that won't go away so easily, he might run into a little bit more problems. So that's why it's a little bit surprising to me to see Vallejos all the way up at -650. Emmett is a tough and tested veteran and often struggles with guys that have grappling edges, that are submission specialists. That's not what Vallejos is. Vallejos is going to try to get in the pocket and land that big shot to put Emmett away. But we know Emmett has nuclear power as well. So if durability on both sides ends up holding up, I'll still lean with Vallejos here. I think he ends up being a little bit more active, landing maybe a little bit more damage. And that's how he ends up winning this fight. But I like the over 3.5, roughly around -105. I expect this fight to hit the scorecards. I think that we'll see these guys land some big shots. We'll have some clinch exchanges. We'll have some grappling exchanges. But I think we see this go 25 minutes and Vallejos ends up getting his hand raised on the scorecards. But +475 on Josh Emmett seems too good to pass up, considering this is a real test for Vallejos and his first foray into the main event slot. So Vallejos by decision will be the official prediction, but you got to give Emmett some credit here to be a live dog to pull off the upset.